army, which was unbelievably advantaged over any of their adversaries. Their swords, their spears, their armor, their tactics were so much advanced, so much more advanced than anybody they were up against. That it was, as they say in Hebrew, lokahom. It wasn't even close. Okay, it was like these trans people trying to compete in these running events with female. It's not even close. Well, actually, no. This guy actually lost. I'm sorry, I called her a guy, but this lost in the weightlifting thing. Serves him for a right. Serves they right. Anyway, serves them right. Anyway. Get big trouble in these things in these days. You gotta be really careful.
It's okay.
No, it's not, by the way, but you gotta know what you're doing in front of people and jumping in. One of the tactics they did to ensure that their empire not just won the war, but continued to rule over vast amounts of land far away from their political center, which was the new one is now being built in Nineveh. Everybody knows where Nineveh is now? What modern city is next door? Mosul. Okay, Mosul, where ISIS was, that's Nineveh. That's the town that was built by Sargon II and later Sancherib. Okay? And they, what they would do, they would conquer a region, particularly the regions that were farther away. They would do exchanges of population. They would take this, round up everybody around and say, everybody up, march them off to a different region and plant them there. The people there, they would say, everybody up, march them, not always to the same place, but to somewhere else. In this way, what do? They ensure that the people living in these far-off lands are completely dedicated to the Assyrians, but also they can completely control them. Okay, now this is part of the story. The other part of the story is very often the Babylonians would do similar things. Who would they take? When the Babylonians took people out to exile, who did they take? Harash Masker. They took any people that had important jobs. They took the high-tech people, they took the bankers, and they took anybody that had something worthwhile to offer to Babylon. They took, but that's not the story of the Assyrians. The Assyrians took everyone. Well, maybe. Meaning they took everyone, meaning they took enough people that there's no longer any Israelite body here. Did they go to every single town and make sure that everyone was gone? Yes. Not necessarily. We don't know. This is part of the answer to the question, who are the Samaritans? So we know these people came from places like Kuta'a and Kushan and all these names that we know today are somewhere north of the Tigris River, and they were brought and settled here. That's what we have in the story. The 2 Kings, chapter 21, 22, 23. I'll give you the exact story. Okay, I'm not sure exactly which one. I'll find it. That's the story we have from the 8th century. Everybody gets that? 8th century. Now, when we meet up again with these people, they already have an identification. They are called Shomronim. They call themselves Shomronim. They're based where? Mostly in Shomron, but in this general area. Shomron is about 10 kilometers in this direction, along the valley. Okay? Along more or less the road that you would take towards towards the coastal road. About 10 kilometers down, you hit Shomron, Samaria, Sebastia. Okay? Now, so they're stationed there. Now, who are they? Are they Jewish? Yes. Or they're following the laws of the Jews. What did Jews call them? We have a name for them now. We're already now in the beginning of the Hellenistic period. Kutim. Jews call them Kutim. And we're going to see there's a change in relationship to the Kutim. These are the early Samaritans. One of their first names of their kings is named Sanballat. Sanballat. Okay? In the book of Nehemiah, he's mentioned already. One of his daughters marries a daughter of the high priest in Jerusalem. There's even marital relations between the people living here and the people in Jerusalem. When the Jews start to build their temple, the people of Sharon see that as a threat, go to the Persian authorities, and seem to have it stopped. This might be some of the background to the story of Purim, related to it for another time. Now here's where things get fishy. We have three separate stories from this point onward. We have a story that we read in Josephus. We have a story that the archaeology tells us from what we're about to see. And then we have a story that those lovely people living in there remember historically of what happened. One more time. Does everybody understand that? We have three separate narratives. Everything just dual narrative. We have three narratives. One narrative is what Josephus told us. And we know today that is wrong. 100% wrong. We'll get to understand why that is. We have what Yitzhak again and the archaeologists are telling us of what is here. Okay, we saw the earlier Kanonot of Nebi Samuel. This entire edition is all on the new archaeology here. He has since published his proper books, but they cost hundreds of shekels. This you can get in used bookstores for basically for free. Okay, there is also a decent article in English that I will try to get to you, but this is the best one-stop place for what goes on here. And then we have what the nice Kohen that if you go into the museum and you pay, you're stuck there for an hour. He's worse than the Karaite people. You cannot get up. Will can keep going. You cannot stop him. I have tried. They keep. They're lovely people, but they keep going and going and going, and you can't stop them. But it's very important that you understand the difference. Okay, now what did Josephus tell us? Josephus had this story. The story was that Sanballat was a name that keeps coming up as the high priest king of the Samaritans. At the time of Alexander the Great, okay, they decided they had a temple that was here, a temple that was, they built a temple to counter the temple in Jerusalem. That temple stood until the time of the Hasmoneans and was destroyed by John Hyrcanus I around the year 112 and 111. Here is the only piece of information that seems to be congruent, seems to be the same.
Which year?
112, 111. It seems to be this temple was destroyed by the Hasmoneans. That's the story we have in. There's a little bit of a soap opera story of how he started the temple. I'll send you places you can read it. We don't have the time. But there was a temple here that was built like almost like a mini model of the temple in Jerusalem that was built to counter it here. Our second story is the story of Yitzhak Magen and the archaeologists. Because what he found here fascinated him. Again, he came here looking. They found that if there was a temple, and I think there was a temple here, and I'll show you where. I sent you what's left of this time period. Okay, it's that stairwell entrance to the holy compound, the holy Temenos area. Okay? It was not built at the time of Alexander the Great. It was built at the beginning of the Persian period. Meaning, this might actually give us some more insight to why they were stopping the temple in Jerusalem. At the same time, I'm screaming. Why am I screaming? At the same time, what are they doing? They are building a temple here. The temple lasted much longer. According to archaeology, the temple that stood here for about 200 years longer than the story that Josephus had remembered in the Second Temple period. But those years were just forgotten. This Sanballat, again, the Sanballat name comes around many, many times. He built this temple here to counter Jerusalem about the same time that what? That Nehemiah and the Ezra Nehemiah or Yoshua through Babel were building the temple in Jerusalem. Fascinating. That's fresh from 20 years ago. Before that, we had no idea. Now, What is the third story? The third story is what? What